Happy Thursday, everybody. It's some more sports content here on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Sports YouTube channel. I am Noah Hiles, your Pitt Athletics beat reporter, and joining me today for our first Thursday edition of this show is my good buddy and high school sports reporter, Steve Rotstein. Steve, how are you today?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. First time making my
Absolutely.
YouTube debut.
There we go. So, Steve, you and I have shared quite a few press boxes, and it was mostly high school sports stuff, but we're going to cover a little bit of everything today. We're going to talk some NFL, some high school football as well, but we're going to start things off with something I'm pretty familiar with, and you are too, as a proud Pitt man yourself, and that is the Panthers' big game Saturday
Yep.
against the University of Tennessee, their first ranked matchup of the year. Panthers coming in at number 17 in the country. Tennessee cracking the AP poll at number 24. Very exciting matchup following a big win over West Virginia for the Panthers a week ago from today. So we're just going to break this one down. There's a lot to get into. It was a very exciting game last year, which Pitt came out on top 41-34. Kenny Pickett, great performance in that one. And I'll start with you there, Steve. What do you remember from that win last year? Were you watching it? Were you able to enjoy your alma mater's big win in
Yeah, I
SEC
mean,
country?
I remember that second quarter, one of the best quarters I think Pitt played all year. 27 points they put up, and they were losing it going into it. They took a halftime lead after that, and then they maintained that lead the rest of the way. Tennessee chipped back at them, and 41-34 late in the game, and then a goal line stand, and then an interception by Brandon Hill on Tennessee's last two drives to kind of seal the win with the defense after the offenses from both teams were kind of just running up and down the field, lighting up the scoreboard. It was the defense that ended up getting it done at the end. That's what I remember from that one.
Yeah, you talked about how Tennessee almost came back, and that's, I think, a pretty big focal point in this year's matchup because the guy who led that comeback is their starting quarterback once again. It's Hendon Hooker. Chris Carter, my beat partner, our coworker, wrote about him and how Pitt matches up against him. You can check that out on our website, postgazette.com. And you look at this guy, I mean, very rarely will you see a team play someone that's going into their fourth matchup against them. But
Yeah.
Hooker has that going for him with 2 times playing against them with Virginia Tech, and now last year against Tennessee, and this will be his second time with Tennessee. What are some things that stand out to you about this guy? You've had a chance to see him play now 3 times against your alma mater. What do you like what he can do, and is he one of the better quarterbacks you think they'll see this year?
I think he is. I mean, he's a guy who can make plays with his arm and his legs, and he's just a guy who he has that grit, and he can come into a game like last year if he wasn't the main guy and just step in and perform. So he's a guy who, whether he's at Virginia Tech or Tennessee, he's a guy who's given Pitt some problems over the years, and I think they're gonna maybe struggle with him again. And that offense as a whole under Josh Heupel, whether it's UCF or Tennessee, that's what I think Pitt, has to figure out a way to slow them down somehow. That up tempo, high speed, hurry up offense, where I think they've given up 34 points at least all 3 times they faced Josh Heupel offense the last 3 years. So, I mean, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep them under 30 this time around, but I think they might have to in order to win.
Look at you coming with the stats. That tempo is what I was going to point out as well. I wrote about it earlier this week on how the Rocks, which is what they call the scout team over at Pitt, they're practicing going 10 seconds in between the snap count or in between snaps on offense, just getting to the line quick, because that's Tennessee's tempo. And 75% of their plays in their win against Ball State last week, they were only going 12 seconds in between snaps. And that's with Hooker under center. He's the kind of quarterback that's athletic enough to keep you on your toes. It's going to limit substitutions, and you're not going to get to do a lot in between snaps when the ball's getting set. So you really, as a defense, need to make sure you're in the right place at the right time, which has been a big point of emphasis this year. You look at Hooker's past against Pitt, and everyone has kind of been talking about this guy like he's the boogeyman. He did look really good against them last year, and a lot of people remember the 28-0 when he dealt them in 2019, but people forget, I mean, Pitt took care of business against him his last time he played them with Virginia Tech. They won in pretty big blowout fashion. And if I remember correctly, it was because of a great running
Yeah.
performance by the Pitt backfield. And I think as we look at this year's matchup, that's going to be the key here. Is I think the defense is still going to be able to make plays. I do think Tennessee is going to score because, like you said, Heupel's had success against Pitt defenses. He just has, both at UCF and Tennessee. But I think if Pitt can control the time of possession, something it did decently well against West Virginia, if you go look at the box score, and if it can just do a little bit better against run defense and make them play on third down and long for Tennessee, but get their offense the ball back and just stay on the field, I think they will have a good shot to win this game like they beat Hooker at Virginia Tech back in 2020. And so I just think that's a big key for the Panthers. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. The run game, I don't think anyone had even like 50 yards on the ground for Pitt against Tennessee last year in the win. But if Izzy or Rodney Hammond, if he's healthy and feeling like he was last week against West Virginia, they could have a bigger game, and they would really need that. And the other thing that could help them a lot is on defense, how deep they are, especially at like linebacker. I know they want to rotate in multiple, personnel groups there, and even on the D line, I feel like they have 8 or 9 guys they could rotate there, and those guys are going to get tired. There's no doubt about it. So they're going to need to keep rotating, keep everyone fresh the whole game. And I think that could turn out to be a beneficial factor for them, just how many guys they have that they can rely on defense, whether it's starters or backups.
I can't take credit for this stat because I wasn't the one who noticed it. Chris Peak pointed it out in one of the pressers we had earlier this week that Pitt had 23 different defensive line combinations against West Virginia. That stat right there goes to show their depth up front. Yeah. So with everything that we've said here, Hooker's excellence, Pitt's need to run the football, past examples of matchups against Pitt, Tennessee, Pitt versus Heupel. Steve, what's your score prediction for this one?
Well, I said they probably would need to hold them to under 30, maybe 30 or less if they want to win. I think Tennessee's going to be right around there. I think it's going to be a good game, but I do think this is probably the toughest game on Pitt's schedule, either this or Miami. I don't think they're going to go undefeated, so they have to lose at least one or two games, I would think, this year. I think this will be one of them. Tennessee's going to be hungry for revenge. I think Tennessee in a good game, back and forth, 30-27.
30
prediction. My dad's alma mater, the Vols.
Oh man, Rocky Top, great. Yep. One of probably the best college fight song in
Absolutely.
my opinion. It is really good, and an all-time uniform matchup. Yeah, on Saturday coming on.
It's going to be a good game, but yeah, I think Tennessee evens the matchup here. So, what about you?
I have the Panthers winning 31-30. We both have Tennessee scoring at least 30 points there. I do think Pitt's just going to be able to grind it out at the end. I really liked what I saw from Keaton Slovis on that final drive. He had the ball in the fourth quarter, especially after not looking his best earlier in that quarter, but the way the whole offense was able to respond. Receivers who hadn't had the best game. The offensive line who Narduzzi called disappointing in his Monday presser. And even Slovis, like I said, who left a little bit to be desired earlier in that quarter. I kind of really liked how they regrouped on that final drive to tie the game against West Virginia before Devonshire obviously put them ahead. So I think that alone, if it's close, I like Pitt at the end there, just with what they have to offer. Like I said, I expect them to be able to run the ball effectively and control the time of possession. And, just having a home atmosphere, again, a home crowd, I think that gives you a little bit of advantage. They're also a little upset that they're underdogs in this one. They're coming into this one with a chip on their shoulder. And I firmly believe they're probably more excited to play this one than the West Virginia game. They knew the West Virginia rivalry was something they had to be invested in because of the fans caring, but they want to play the SEC school. They want to make a statement. They want to go 2-0 with 2 Power 5 wins to start their year. So that's why I like Pitt 31-30. Another area that I'm focused on last year, everyone talks about the big second quarter. Everyone talks about how they almost blew it, but something that made the difference, Pitt forced 3 turnovers and Tennessee forced none. And you mentioned the Brandon Hill play at the end that kind of sealed it. I think that's something that can happen again with this high-tempo offense that Tennessee runs. Yes, you get a lot of plays off. You create a lot of opportunities. You can also make a lot of mistakes. And I think if Pitt just protects the football and Tennessee makes a couple of mistakes, which they're kind of prone to do when you're running this many plays, that could play the difference. So we'll move on now from college football to something everyone's excited about. The NFL season kicks off tonight. It is the Bills. It is the Rams. Steelers play on Sunday, as does everyone else. It's going to be a great season as always. Everyone loves NFL football here in America, especially here in the Steel City. So let's talk about it, Steve. I want to go, before we break down tonight's matchup, we'll let the millions of people we have at this outlet who cover the Steelers talk more about the Steelers. We'll just talk league as a whole here. I want to know who your Super Bowl picks are and why.
Yeah, I mean, this is hard to think about. There's no clear favorite this year, and I wanted to, pick not someone that everyone's picking. I know maybe the Bills aren't the clear favorite, but I saw NFL Network, all 6 analysts pick the Bills to win this year, which is kind of crazy. They've never won a Super Bowl. I think they're probably the best team, but the best team doesn't always win it. So I'm not going to pick Buffalo. I'm going to go with the Chargers,
The
the LA
Chargers.
Chargers.
Okay.
I'm
So,
going. Yeah,
oh,
on
go
the
ahead.
Chargers. Are we picking the matchup?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to. I forgot to preview it earlier. Also, if we're talking football, we got to talk a little bit of gambling here. If
Oh
you,
yeah,
for those who don't know me, Noah's no doubters. I like to play the numbers a little bit here every now and then, folks. And it's a great season to be a gambler. Our coworker Adam Bittner had a great gambler's guide in today's Thursday paper. You can go check out, and he has some trends and everything. So if you're taking the Chargers, Steve, yeah, give me your Super Bowl matchup, and then give me your number on what kind of value you get if you pick not the San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers to win the
yeah,
Super Bowl
LA.
this year.
I'm taking the Chargers. Justin Herbert going to lead them all the way against the Bucks. Going to beat
Okay.
Tom Brady and the Bucks in his final game, final Super Bowl appearance. He's going to pass the torch to Jay Herb, and the Chargers will get that win. As far as final score, I didn't think too far about that one,
Oh,
but
no, I was thinking
but the
value.
value,
Yeah.
12-1 on the
Okay.
Chargers. I think that's pretty solid.
I like that value. Yeah, I think they were probably like the sixth or seventh
Yeah.
lowest odds or
Khalil
highest odds.
Mack coming to town to help to rush alongside Joey Bosa. I think he's still got some left to prove, kind of like Von Miller in LA last year.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fearsome pass rush, and the offense is just so tough to stop. So
Yeah. And people forget, I mean, they were just one long field goal miss away from being in the playoffs, and who knows what happens there.
yeah,
I really do like their coaching staff. That was one of the 2 Super Bowl picks that I had circled, but I'm going to go with my other one. And you talked about ending careers. I think Mr. Ayahuasca himself, Aaron Rodgers, ends his career with a Super Bowl win with the Green Bay
wow,
Packers over the Chargers. Actually, that was my preseason pick. I talked to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. He just said, who do you like? And I just think the Chargers, I think they're better defensively than they are offensively. I really like what they have in the secondary. I think they can get to the passer. And while Rodgers lost his top weapon, you look, a lot of teams who win Super Bowls don't have a top 5 receiver. It's more a solid run game, a stable of pass catchers who can make a difference, on combination routes, and a veteran quarterback, which Green Bay has. I think Rodgers is really locked in on just having one more good year. I think Green Bay wins it, and their odds are, you can get them at plus 1025 on my bookie, which is the site that sponsors one of our podcasts. So we're going to promote them. And you can get, that's a pretty good number, I think, for a team that's consistently in the NFC Championship game. Hasn't been to a Super Bowl in a while, I will say that. But I mean, Green Bay, I think, is as good as anyone this year.
yeah, they always are, and I always feel like I pick them to either come out of the NFC or win the whole Super Bowl because I'm a big Aaron Rodgers believer. But after picking them over and over again, and they just seem to fizzle out in the playoffs for whatever reason every year. So I can't pick them again this year, especially after Devontae Adams left. I know you made the point that
Yeah.
you don't really need a top 5 receiver, but I'm a big Devontae Adams guy too. So now that he's gone, I can't pick them again this year. But it wouldn't surprise me for A-Rod to make one last run at it and go out with a win. So
Aaron
we'll
Rodgers lately, he's been immunized against, postseason success, but maybe,
clearly.
that'll wear off. So we go into team totals now, just looking at regular season predictions, the lines on over under win totals for the year. These are always fun to go through just to get a gauge as to, what teams you follow, or just really in general, what the odds makers think they're capable of this year. What are some ones that stood out to you as far as good value and maybe something that might surprise someone?
Well, yeah, I was trying to find ones that did have good value. Most of the picks for the win totals that I like to look at, you usually look for the unders, I feel like, because the overs are kind of harder to reach sometimes. The unders are usually better bets, I feel like. But for this year, I think the best value I could find was the Kansas City Chiefs at over 10.5 wins is minus 125. Almost even value there. And they've never won less than 12 games with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. The 17 game schedule now. It used to be 16. So they've always won at least 12. They could easily win 13 or 14. I don't think they'll be as good as they have been maybe in the past couple of years without Tyreek Hill there. But, Sky Moore, the local guy coming in, Juju as well, plenty of talent still. And with Andy Reid at the helm, I think they're just going to find ways to win plenty of games and probably win that division again, even if the Chargers win the Super Bowl. I think Kansas City will probably go about 12-5, at least 11-6. So I like over 10.5 for Kansas City. And I just want to say, don't think of me as some expert gambler. I'm just telling you the odds that I found that I like, because I'm not trying to tell you to go follow me on here. Maybe follow Noah, but don't follow me on here. I am no expert on this.
I'm an expert at losing. So if you want to just fade everything I say, you'll probably be able to pay your kids' college off a lot faster. But going with that Chiefs pick, that's interesting, because if you look, I do think they're going to lose probably 2 to 3 games just in division play with how loaded the AFC West is, with Denver now having Russ, with Devontae Adams going over to the Raiders in Las Vegas. And, they had a pretty talented team already last year. And then, like you said, we both have Los Angeles now going to the Super Bowl. So that's a tough slate right there. That's 6 tough games on their schedule. I think, they'll probably have a winning record against that, but that's at least 2 or 3 losses, I think. And then, you go around with the win total, have a couple of upset games. I think they're going to be close to that 10-11 win mark, but probably a smart pick. My picks are a little bit more ambitious, just because of the value. I love the juice, Steve. That's what you got to go after here. And my first one I have is the Cowboys over 10.5 wins.
Ooh.
That's going to get you plus 126. I know we were talking pre-show. You were like,
I was looking at them under.
Yeah. I just think Dallas has so much potential. I also think if they don't win 11 games, Mike McCarthy's probably fired. Jerry Jones, I don't think likes him at all personally, just from what I've been able to gather from afar. I don't have any inside information.
Inside sources
nothing
in the
at all.
Cowboys
None.
system.
But no, I just he doesn't seem very content with this head coaching right now. But I just think, Dallas has a ton of talent. You look at the playmakers they have on offense. They have good linebackers on defense. They can force turnovers. And that division is not amazing. You got 2 easy wins against the Giants, 2 easy wins against the Commanders. You would think Philly, I think, will be a good team. But, that's a big rivalry game. They might split there. That's 5 easy wins, 4 or 5 easy wins. You look at the rest of their schedule. I think they can probably get out to around 11. If we're talking postseason stuff, I'm not betting on the Cowboys very often, but I think 11 wins in a 17-game schedule isn't that crazy for them.
I think you might want to slow down on penciling in easy wins for them against the Giants and Commanders, because the Cowboys can find a way to lose against anyone.
That is true. NFC East, throw the record books out the window. Those teams, they just don't like each other. To go along with, I have one other pick that goes along with value, and this one actually less value, but I think is a bit more of a stretch. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars over 6.5 wins. And this one would be surprising, but again, you look at divisions, I don't think the AFC South is anything amazing, 1. And 2, no. I think your team's guaranteed to win at least 2 or 3 more games after Urban Meyer leaves it. Just culture-wise, I think they're going to have a little bit of a boost there. Lawrence in year 2, they added some to the defense, added a couple of other guys in different areas. So, I don't think it would be a super stretch. And with the plus 101 value, I think it's worth at least, taking a little bit of a flyer on.
I can see that.
So we'll move on to tonight's game. Rams versus Bills. You got the Super Bowl champions versus the odds-on favorite to win this year's Super Bowl. The Bills are giving 2.5 points. They're minus 2.5. The total is at 52. Just some quick notes from Adam's Bettor's Guide here. The public loves the Buffalo Bills, as does the sharp money, which is the money total difference compared to the public betting percentage there. So everyone seems to be on the Josh Allen bandwagon. I don't necessarily blame them. Steve, what do you think about you? Who do you got in this one just to win?
Yeah, I think people are still thinking back on last year's playoff run, that epic Bills-Chiefs game, and Allen looked like maybe the greatest quarterback the world's ever seen, and they had the number 1 defense in every statistical measure last year too, and they should be really good on defense again, really good on offense again. I don't know why people, though, seem to be kind of, discounting the Rams a little bit coming off the Super Bowl win. It feels like people are really not expecting them to make another run at it. Matthew Stafford had this elbow issue that he was dealing with that he seems to be cleared from now and ready to go. They got Cooper Kupp back. They lost Von Miller. They still have Aaron Donald, though. They still have Jalen Ramsey. They still have so many great players. So, I think the Rams could easily go back to the Super Bowl, but I do think they will lose at home in this opener. I think the Bills get a 31-26 win in a great game tonight.
All right, so they cover. And you talked about people remembering the playoffs. They must not remember that the Rams won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to talk about that. And don't get me wrong, that Bills-Chiefs game, all-time classic. I had Bills money line. tough scene for me. I think I
Yeah.
shoveled my entire block of snow,
Yeah.
just to blow
Just
off some
while
steam after
crying.
that one. Yeah,
Yes.
pretty much. But I don't know who I think I'll take the Rams. I'll take the Rams. Just Super Bowl champs. They feel like they've kind of been disrespected.
Yeah.
Buffalo also lost last week or last year in week 1 against the Steelers. So maybe they're just not going to be ready again. Who knows? The play I really like in this one though, Steve, is actually the under. 75% of the betting public loves the over here. I think this is going to be a conservative game on both sides. I think we will get to see some exciting action in the fourth quarter, but I do expect a sluggish start because these are two really good defenses. And, it's hard to really iron out a great offensive game plan and execute it well to start the season. I think they're both going to come out pretty conservative and slow, and that's why I like under 52 points here. And I'm in the minority.
You're in the minority for sure.
Yeah, with that point of view, as 75% of the public has the over. So, final segment of the show. We've talked college, we've talked professional. Let's talk something that both of us know pretty well. That's high school football. A lot of good stuff going on, as always, in WPIAL football. We're in week 2, even though it was week 0, so it's kind of week 3, but some teams didn't play in week 0. Some teams haven't played at all for reasons we're not going to get into. But nonetheless, a lot going on, as always, here in Western Pennsylvania on the high school football gridiron scene. Before we get into our main topic of conversation, Steve, I just want to ask, who's a player or a team that's kind of stood out to you that you weren't necessarily expecting so far?
Well, there's one easy choice from week 0, the first week of the season. That's Conlon Green from Penn Trafford. I mean, we talked about him a little on our Varsity Extra podcast with Mike White and Brad Everett a couple weeks ago. I mean, 6'4", 265-pound defensive end going to Temple, who as a senior steps in as their quarterback for the first time for the defending state champions in Class 5A. And he threw for, I think, 365 yards, 335 yards first game of his high school quarterbacking career. 335 yards and a big win for them against Cannon Mac. And that's just a guy who had converted from defensive end. And, no one saw that coming from him. I thought maybe he'd be like a running quarterback when they said they were putting him back there. But apparently he can sling the ball. So they did lose to McKeesport last week. We'll see how they bounce back this week. But Conlon Green is one of the more unexpected stories to come out of this season so far, and we'll see what he can do the rest of the year. He threw a jump pass in the state championship game to send it to overtime last year, so he's definitely got some talent more than just rushing the passer. He can throw the ball too.
And that kid looks like a creative player. Like you don't see a lot of high school quarterbacks that size with that kind of skill set. He's fun to watch. So if we're talking high school football, one area that I'm very familiar with is, of course, Beaver County. That's where I worked prior to here. And a team that I covered a lot was a team that's been winning a lot recently, the Central Valley Warriors, back-to-back state champions in Class 3A. They're up in Class 4A now. And, Steve, they've been winning a lot. What's their win streak up to now?
Up to 29 games in a row.
Wow.
I believe 2 more wins this next week. If they win this coming Friday, they will tie for 5th longest streak all time in the WPIAL.
Now they're a ways away from tying the Clarendon Bears, which I proudly was a part of. One of those 84, I think it was, wins in a row.
66. 66.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, 66.
It seemed like
Southern
80,000.
Columbia was going to tie it last year.
Yes, they lost to Wyomissing.
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yes. So however many it was, I was a part of one painful loss in my freshman year that my brain thankfully doesn't let me recall too often, thanks to, some traumatic stuff kicking in. But nonetheless, let's talk Central Valley. They're up in 4A. They're in the Parkway Conference, which to me is just awesome. I love that conference. There's so much history and tradition there with the programs involved in it. And there's a lot of talent in that conference this year. So we look down the schedule. Are they capable of getting to the playoffs with this win streak alive? I don't think it's fair to even assume they can come close to that Clarendon record right now. Let's just look at the regular season slate. When's the first time they're really at risk of this thing coming to an end?
It's the final 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
They've got their 2 toughest matchups at the very end. Most, I would say, myself, Mike, and Brad, at least, we all expect them to get to 35 in a row going into the second to last week. They play West Allegheny, who has dropped down to 4A, and they look really strong this year. And then Aliquippa, who's the number 1 team in the state and one of their best teams in their history. They play them in the finale. But Central Valley has beaten them 4 times in a row. I don't think many people expect them to make it 5 in a row this year. So I think most people expect the streak to end at 35 or 36 with one of those games, and I picked them to beat West Allegheny, but to lose to Aliquippa on the road in the finale. So I think we see them get to 36 in a row, but they could beat the Quips again and go to the playoffs undefeated with 37 and counting. And who knows? I mean, I'm not going to put it past Mark Lyons and that group to go all the way to states again, even in 4A.
That's probably the one thing Mike Warfield hasn't accomplished in his great career at Aliquippa is he's yet to beat Mark
It
Lyons. He's
is.
0-4. And one of
He's a
those
Central
losses,
Valley resident too, like
yes.
in
Yeah.
their school district, but
Yeah.
can't beat him.
And that first loss came in 2018, Aliquippa's state championship year, his first year there. And Central Valley needed a win to
They
just
weren't
reach
that good that year,
500
yeah.
and make the playoffs. And they beat an MJ Devonshire-led Quips team on the final night of the regular season. So anything can happen when those two teams play. But I'm really glad you pointed out what West Allegheny's doing. Blowout win over Moon to start the season, and then another blowout win over South Fayette. I don't know what those two programs really have to offer this season. I don't know if either of them will be playoff teams, but those are still notable names in the grand scheme of things for high school football in this area. I love what Noden Tracy's doing out of the backfield there for West Allegheny. They look like a strong threat as well in the Parkway, but it will be fun to watch it all unfold here as the Friday nights continue. Steve, where are you heading tomorrow night?
East Allegheny, going to go watch Elizabeth Ford versus East Allegheny battle of top 5 teams in AAA. EF is our number 2 team, and they're the team I picked in preseason to actually win it all in AAA for the first time. Picked them over Bell Vernon. So I'm expecting EF to go in on the road and get a win there, but hoping for a good matchup.
You can check out all of Steve's coverage for that game and all other high school sports at our site. You can check out my pick coverage. You can check out all the coverage for really all the sports in this city, from the tons of employees and talented people we have working here at the Post-Gazette. And you can keep coming back to this YouTube channel to get more analysis and a little bit of gambling takes from yours truly as time continues to move forward. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, and we'll see you another time soon.